That morning I thought I was dreaming. But the look in his eyes told me everything had changed. Forever. The first thing I felt that morning was warmth. Not the kind that comes from sunlight, but the soft kind that comes from another person's nearness. I blinked against the brightness seeping through the thin dorm curtains and tried to remember if I'd closed them last night. I hadn't. That meant the light should have hit my eyes long ago. So why was I just waking up now? A quiet rustle came from the other side of the small room. My brain, still fogged by sleep, took a few seconds to realize it wasn't the air conditioner humming. It was Ethan, my roommate, moving around near my bed. We'd lived together for almost a year, two guys thrown together by the housing office, an odd match that somehow worked. He was the outgoing one. Varsity jacket, quick grin, always late to everything but still impossible to stay mad at. I was the quieter one, the guy who planned his schedule, folded his laundry, and secretly liked the smell of Ethan's coffee filling the room every morning. That day, though, something felt different. When my eyes finally adjusted, I saw him standing close, too close, leaning over my desk. His back was turned, and for a second I thought he was just looking for something. But then I realized he was holding my sketchbook. The one I never let anyone see. He wasn't just flipping through it. He was staring at a page, that page, the one where I'd drawn him, captured mid-laugh, pencil shading soft around his face like light itself was touching him. My stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to know. I sat up too fast, the bed springs groaning. He spun around startled, the sketchbook still open in his hands. Our eyes met, and in that instant the room shrank to the size of that fragile breath between us. Sorry, he stammered, closing the book too quickly. It was just on your desk and it wasn't, I interrupted, heat rising to my face. It was under the notes, he blinked, guilty and confused all at once. I wasn't snooping, I just saw the drawing and man, it's really good. I didn't know you could... He stopped mid-sentence, maybe realizing what he'd seen. That's me, right? I couldn't answer. My throat was too dry. The silence stretched, thick and awkward. He scratched the back of his neck, the move he always did when he didn't know what to say. Look, he said finally, voice softer now. It's kind of weird, I know. I just didn't expect... I mean, you drew me like you actually notice things. I forced a shaky laugh. Yeah, I guess I do. He placed the sketchbook back on the desk, careful, like it might break if he handled it wrong. You should show people this stuff. You've got talent. He tried to smile, but something behind his eyes flickered. Curiosity, maybe. Or confusion. And something inside me shifted too. The air felt heavier, my pulse louder. The rest of the morning moved like a film running too slow. Ethan made coffee, cracked jokes about my secret artist life, and acted like everything was normal. But I could feel it, the unspoken question hovering between us. Why had I drawn him like that? And why had he cared so much? When he handed me my cup, his fingers brushed mine. Barely, but the jolt that ran through me was real. I pretended to sip, focusing on the bitter taste so I wouldn't have to look at him. You okay? He asked. You're quiet today. Just tired. He studied me for a moment longer than usual. You know, you can tell me stuff, right? Whatever's on your mind. The words were casual, but they cut deeper than he knew. I wanted to tell him everything. The late-night thoughts, the way his laugh stayed in my head, the reason my heart had drawn him without permission. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I said, Yeah, I know. He smiled and left for class, slinging his backpack over one shoulder. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed felt heavier than his presence ever did. That afternoon, I skipped lunch and sat by the window, the sketchbook open again on my lap. I stared at the same drawing, tracing the lines of his face with my eyes. Had he guessed? Had he felt it too? That strange tension that had been growing for months? We'd met by accident, bonded over bad takeout and shared playlists, and somewhere between exams and late-night talks, my admiration had quietly become something else. Something I never planned. Something I was sure he'd never understand. But the way he'd looked at that drawing, it wasn't disgust or mockery. It was something else. Something I couldn't name yet. Later that night, when he came back from basketball practice, his hair damp and his hoodie clinging to his shoulders, he threw me a grin. Still mad about this morning? I shrugged, trying to act unfazed. You just surprised me, that's all. He dropped onto his bed with a groan. You surprised me too, man. That drawing? It was kind of beautiful. Not just because it's me, don't get cocky, but because you made it feel, I don't know, real. I looked up. Real! Yeah, like you see stuff that other people miss. He turned his head then, eyes finding mine across the dim light of the room. What else do you see, huh? I didn't know how to answer, so I laughed softly. That you need a shower before your next class. He threw a pillow at me, both of us laughing. But when the laughter faded, a quiet moment lingered, eyes locked, breath slow, as if neither of us wanted to look away first. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the spell. He muttered something about his girlfriend texting, grabbed his things, and left again. The door closed, and I exhaled the breath I didn't know I'd been holding. That night, I couldn't sleep. His words kept echoing. You see stuff other people miss. I wondered what he'd think if he knew what I really saw, how I noticed the small things, the way his laughter always came before his smile, the faint scar near his wrist, the quiet kindness behind his jokes. Around midnight, I heard the door open. Ethan slipped in quietly, thinking I was asleep. I peeked through half-closed eyes. He moved around softly, setting down his phone, pulling off his hoodie. Then he stopped right beside my bed. For a moment, he just looked at me. I felt it, the weight of his gaze, the kind of look that carries more questions than words could hold. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he whispered. Good night. Man, and in that whisper, I heard something new. Uncertainty, warmth, maybe even fear. When the lights went out, I lay there, heart racing, wondering what that moment really meant. Something had changed. I didn't know what it was yet, but I knew the next morning, nothing would ever feel quite the same. The next morning started with noise, his alarm blaring, the kettle hissing, but beneath all of it was something quieter, the echo of last night. I pretended to be asleep when Ethan got up. He moved carefully, almost too carefully, as if afraid of waking me. That wasn't like him. Usually he'd hum or drop his phone twice before finding it. Today he was quiet. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. You awake? I turned slowly, blinking against the sunlight. Yeah. He nodded once, staring down at the floor. Didn't want to wake you. You were out cold. He was lying. I could tell. There was a new distance in his voice, like he was measuring every word before letting it fall. Thanks, I said, sitting up. Long night, I guess? Yeah. He scratched his neck, glancing at my desk where the sketchbook used to sit. Now it was tucked safely inside my drawer. About yesterday. I didn't mean to make it weird. It's fine, I said too quickly. He looked at me then, eyes searching. You sure? No, I wasn't. Nothing about this felt fine. But I forced a smile anyway. Totally. You're good. He nodded again, but his jaw tightened. Okay. He left for class a few minutes later. The door clicked behind him, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the conversation. By noon, the tension had built into something almost physical. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be him. When it wasn't, I felt relief and disappointment. We had never gone this long without joking, without sharing something small. The quiet made me realize how much space he took up in my day. At lunch, I sat outside under the old oak near the art building. The campus buzzed around me, but it all felt far away. I opened my sketchbook again, flipping to a blank page. My pencil hovered, uncertain. I wanted to draw, but everything I saw turned into him, his hands, his grin, the way he looked at me last night. Hey, a voice said behind me. I looked up. Ethan. He was holding 2 sandwiches and a soda. You skipped breakfast, so... He shrugged. I figured you'd forget lunch too. I blinked. You didn't have to. He sat down beside me anyway, close enough that his shoulder brushed mine. Yeah, well, I was kinda a jerk this morning. You weren't. He smiled faintly. Maybe not, but I felt like one. We ate in silence for a while. It was awkward at first, but then something about the normal act, chewing, sipping soda, made it easier to breathe again. After a while, he said, You ever draw people for like a reason? Or you just see someone and start sketching? I froze mid-bite. I mean, he continued, staring at the grass. I've been thinking about that picture. It felt like you were trying to say something. I didn't know how to answer. My throat tightened. Maybe I was. Maybe not on purpose. He turned his head toward me. Like what? Like, I see things in people that they don't always see in themselves. He studied me quietly. You saw something in me? I nodded once. Something real. The words hung there, soft but heavy. His gaze dropped to his hands, then back to me. You ever wish you hadn't? The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. Why would I wish that? Because sometimes it's easier not to notice stuff, he said. Once you do, you can't unsee it. He stood up, brushing crumbs off his jeans. Anyway, thanks for the drawing, I guess. I keep thinking about it, and then he walked away. That night, the room felt smaller than ever. He came in late again, headphones around his neck, hair messy from practice. I pretended to be reading, but I could feel him watching me. You really mad at me? He asked finally. I looked up. No, just tired. He crossed his arms. You've been tired all week. Then maybe I'm just tired of feeling weird around you. He blinked, taken aback. So it is weird? I sighed. You tell me. You're the one acting like I did something wrong. He dropped his bag on the floor. You didn't! Then what is this, Ethan? One day we're fine, next day you can't even look at me. He hesitated, jaw tight. I don't know. You drew me like I mattered to you. You do matter. The words came out before I could stop them. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the desk lamp filled the space where words should have been. He ran a hand through his hair. That's the thing. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything, I said softly. I wasn't asking for anything. I know. It's just... He trailed off, eyes clouded with something I couldn't read. No one's ever looked at me that way before. I swallowed hard. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. He met my eyes, and for a second everything stilled. The noise, the tension, the fear. Just his gaze holding mine, fragile and unsure. Then he looked away. I should shower. He turned toward the bathroom, but before he closed the door, he said, almost under his breath, Thanks for noticing me. When he came out, the lights were off except for my lamp. I was sketching again, lines soft and uncertain. He paused by my bed. Drawing me again? He teased lightly. Maybe, I said. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Don't stay up too late. He lay down, facing the wall. For a while, the only sound was his breathing. Then, in the dark, he spoke again. Hey, he whispered.
Do you ever wish things were simpler?
I thought about that. All the time. Yeah, he said quietly. Me too. After that, he didn't say another word. But I could tell he wasn't asleep. Neither was I. I lay there, listening to the faint rhythm of his breath, wondering what was happening to us. Something had shifted again, subtle but unmistakable. The distance between our beds felt smaller, like the silence itself was drawing us closer. And somewhere between wakefulness and dreams, I realized something that scared me. I wasn't just afraid of losing our friendship anymore. I was afraid of what might happen if we stopped pretending nothing was changing. 3 days passed before we found a rhythm again. Or maybe it was just silence disguised as peace. Ethan and I still shared the same space, same tiny dorm, same mismatched mugs. But everything between us felt filtered, like a film placed over the light. He still cracked jokes, but his laughter stopped just short of the warmth it used to carry. One night, while I was sketching in the corner, he came in with his friends from practice. I smiled, ready to say hi, but he only gave a quick nod before turning back to them. I told myself it didn't hurt. It did. They were talking about the weekend, about a party off campus. One of them asked if Ethan was bringing his girlfriend. He just shrugged. We'll see. Then he added, Might just go with whoever needs a ride. A few of the guys laughed. I laughed too, but it sounded hollow even to me. When they left, the room went quiet again. Ethan looked over. You could come too, you know. Parties aren't really my thing. They weren't mine either, he said softly. Until I started using them to forget stuff. I raised an eyebrow. What are you trying to forget? He hesitated, then smiled like it was a joke. Homework. But I saw the shadow behind his grin. Something was bothering him, and for the first time I wasn't sure if I was part of it or the cause. Saturday night came. I stayed in. The dorm felt too big without his noise filling it. I tried to draw, but the lines kept slipping. Everything I sketched turned into fragments. His hand reaching for the door, the back of his head disappearing into the hall, the empty mug on his desk. By midnight, I gave up and turned off the light. A few hours later, the door creaked open. Ethan stumbled in, quieter than usual but not drunk. He looked tired. His hoodie smelled like bonfire smoke and rain. "Hey," I whispered. He jumped a little, not expecting me to be awake. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." He dropped onto his bed with a sigh. The glow from the streetlight outside brushed across his face, and for a moment he looked older. Worn out, almost sad. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said automatically, then shook his head. "No, not really." I sat up. "What happened?" He hesitated before answering. "You ever get somewhere and realize you don't belong there anymore?" "All the time." He looked at me then, really looked. "That's how it felt tonight. Silence. Just the hum of the heater between us. I saw my ex there," he continued quietly. "We talked. Or tried to. She said I've been different lately." I swallowed. "Different how?" "She said I'm quieter. That I think too much. That I don't look at her the same way I used to." He laughed softly, without humor. "She's probably right." I wanted to ask what he was thinking about these days, but I already knew. Or at least I hoped I did. Instead I said, "People change. That's not a bad thing." He nodded, staring at the ceiling. "Yeah, maybe." The next morning I woke up to the sound of rain tapping the window. Ethan was still asleep, turned toward the wall, breathing slow. For a moment I let myself look, just long enough to remember that warmth from the first morning. When he finally woke, we went about our day quietly. The rain never stopped. Around noon he spoke suddenly. "You ever think about leaving this place?" "The dorm?" "The college." "The city, everything." "Sometimes," I admitted. "But I don't know what I'd be running from." He smiled faintly. "Maybe not from. Maybe towards something." That stuck with me all day. That evening he found me in the art studio on campus. I'd been there for hours, working on a charcoal piece of the storm outside the window. "You really like the rain," he said, leaning against the doorway. "It hides things," I said. "Makes them softer." He stepped closer, looking at my work. "That's what you do, huh? You make hard things look softer. Only so people can stand to look at them." He was quiet for a moment. "What about me? You'd make me look softer too?" I met his eyes. "You already do that yourself." He smiled, but it faded fast. "You think you know me?" "I think I'm trying to." He looked at me for a long time, long enough that the rain's rhythm filled the silence. Then suddenly he said, "I don't know what's happening to me lately." "What do you mean?" He exhaled, frustrated. "I get this weird feeling when you're around. Like I'm supposed to say something, but I don't even know what it is." My heart thudded. "Then say whatever you can." He shook his head. "If I say it wrong, I'll lose you." "You won't," I said quietly. "You couldn't." He looked at me again, eyes bright with something unspoken. Then he stepped back. "I should go." And just like that, he was gone. That night, the storm grew louder. I lay awake replaying every word, every look. I didn't know what scared me more, that he might never say what he felt, or that he might. Near midnight, there was a knock on the door. It was Ethan, soaked from the rain, hoodie clinging to him. "You're drenched," I said, grabbing a towel. He didn't move. I walked around for an hour trying to stop thinking. And? It didn't work. He looked at me, eyes uncertain but searching. "You said I couldn't lose you." "You can't." He stepped closer, still dripping rainwater, the distance between us shrinking until I could see the raindrops on his lashes. His voice dropped. "Then why does it feel like I already am?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. The storm rumbled outside, a low roll of thunder that matched the sound of my pulse. He took a slow breath. "I don't know what this is, okay? I just know that when you're not around, everything feels quieter, and not the good kind of quiet," I whispered. "Then don't stay away." He nodded once, eyes softening. "I don't want to." He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "I just need to figure myself out first." "I'll be here," I said. "Whenever you do." He gave a small, tired smile. "Yeah, I know." He turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Thanks for not giving up on me." When he was gone, the room felt lighter and heavier at once. Outside, the rain finally began to fade. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel invisible. Just waiting for whatever tomorrow would bring. It had been a week since the storm. Classes blurred together and the days felt slower. Ethan and I still shared space, but our conversations hovered at the surface, safe, polite, and painfully shallow. He kept busy. Practice, study group, anywhere that wasn't here. I told myself it was fine, but the quiet started to feel like distance wearing a familiar face. On Thursday, our professor assigned a group project. I wasn't surprised when Ethan ended up in my team. Fate, apparently, enjoyed small jokes. We sat across from each other in the library, laptops open, pretending to care about the outline on the screen. The air between us felt heavy, like a storm waiting to start again. "You okay?" I finally asked. He looked up. "Yeah, you?" "Sure." We both knew it was a lie. He sighed and leaned back in his chair.
You know what's weird?
"We talk every day, but it feels like we haven't said anything real in weeks." "I've noticed," I admitted. He rubbed his temples. "I hate that. I hate how careful we're being. It's like we're afraid of one wrong word. Maybe we are." He met my eyes, steady this time. "I don't want to be." The sentence hung there, simple but heavy. Before I could answer, someone from our group called Ethan's name, breaking the moment. He turned back to the project, but his shoulders were tense. When the meeting ended, he gathered his stuff. "Walk with me?" Outside, the evening air smelled like damp leaves. We walked in silence across campus until we reached the field behind the dorms, empty, quiet, and half-lit by streetlights. Ethan stopped, hands deep in his pockets. "Remember that night after the rain?" How could I forget? He smiled faintly. "I keep thinking about what you said, that I can't lose you." I nodded. "You were right," he continued. "But it's not that simple for me. I'm trying to figure out why it feels so different now." "What do you mean?" He exhaled. "I've had friends before. Close ones. But this, whatever this is, feels bigger. And it scares me." The honesty in his voice made my chest tighten. "It scares me too." He turned toward me. "Why?" "Because I don't know where I stand with you," I said quietly. "One minute it feels like we're more than friends. The next you disappear," he winced. "I know. I keep running every time it feels too real." "Why?" He thought for a long moment before speaking. "Because I was raised to believe there's only one way to be. And you..." He paused, searching for the words. "You make me question that." I looked down, unsure what to say. The grass beneath our shoes glistened with dew. He stepped closer. "I don't want to hurt you, but I can't keep pretending this isn't there either." My voice barely came out. "Then don't." The wind moved between us, cool and steady. "I don't know what this means yet," he said, "but I know I care about you. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time." I met his eyes, heart pounding. "That's enough for now." He smiled, a small, uncertain smile, but it reached his eyes this time. We stood there in silence, the kind that felt like peace instead of distance. Later, back in the room, things felt different. We didn't need to fill the space with noise anymore. He sat at his desk, scrolling through something on his phone, and I drew quietly by the lamp. After a while, he spoke. "What are you drawing tonight?" I turned the page toward him. "You again," he laughed softly. "You never get tired of that?" "Not yet." He looked at the sketch for a long time. "You always make me look calmer than I feel. Maybe that's how I see you." He nodded, then said, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why me?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "You could draw anyone." "Talk to anyone." "Why keep putting up with all my confusion?" I thought about that. "Because you're honest even when you're lost. And because you make the world around you feel alive." He went quiet again. Then, very softly, he said, "You make me want to be better." The words hit harder than I expected. For a moment, I couldn't speak. When I finally did, I whispered, "You already are." He smiled at that, tired, grateful. "Good night," he said, climbing into bed. "Good night, Ethan." I didn't sleep for a long time. Not because I was worried anymore, but because something inside me felt lighter. Whatever came next, at least the silence was over. As I drifted off, I heard him whisper, barely audible across the room, "I'm glad you didn't give up on me." I smiled in the dark, not answering because I didn't need to. He already knew. The days after our talk felt different. Not louder or busier, just softer. The air between us had finally changed. No more pretending, no more running from the quiet. Ethan and I moved through the week like two people learning how to breathe again. We still had our routines, classes, workouts, late-night study sessions, but every glance lingered a little longer. Every smile felt a little deeper. It wasn't about big gestures. It was the small things that gave it away. The way he'd bring me coffee before his morning run. The way I'd save him the window seat in the library without asking. The way silence between us started to mean comfort instead of distance. One night near the end of the semester, we sat on the dorm roof. It was one of those nights when the sky looked too wide to belong to anyone. Ethan handed me his jacket. You always forget how cold it gets up here. I like the cold, I said, smiling. It reminds me I'm alive. He looked at me, really looked. You've changed me, you know. I raised an eyebrow. For better or worse? For real, he said softly. Before you, I was always trying to be who people expected. I didn't even notice how tired that made me. And now? Now, he paused, searching the stars for words. Now I feel like I can just be. The way he said it, quiet, certain, made my chest ache in the best way. We sat there in silence for a while, listening to the hum of the campus far below. Somewhere, someone was playing a guitar, the sound drifting up like a memory. Then he said, You know what scares me the most? What? That one day you'll wake up and realize I'm not worth all this. I turned to him, heart tight. You already were. Long before you believed it. He swallowed hard, his eyes glinting under the dim light. I don't know what this is supposed to look like, he said. All I know is that when I'm with you, everything else feels easier. Then that's enough, I whispered. He stared at me for a long moment, the kind that holds more words than a lifetime of conversations. Then slowly he reached for my hand, no rush, no uncertainty. Just two people finally meeting in the middle of everything they'd been running from. His hand was warm, familiar, steady. I don't want to label it, he said, voice shaking just a little. I just want to be here. With you. I nodded, feeling my throat tighten. That's all I've ever wanted. And for the first time in months, the space between us didn't feel fragile. It felt full. Weeks passed. The semester ended. We packed up the room we'd shared for almost a year, the place where everything had changed. Ethan folded the last of his shirts into a box. You ever think about how much we've been through in this tiny space? I laughed. Yeah, it's weird how something so small can hold so many versions of us. He smiled. I think this one's my favorite. There it was again, that quiet honesty that had become his way of saying everything he didn't know how to say out loud. When it was time to leave, he turned to me. So what now? Now? I said, meeting his eyes. We figure it out together, he nodded. Together sounds good. We didn't make promises that day. We didn't need to. Because what we had wasn't about forever. It was about finally being real, finally being seen. A month later, I got a text from him. Miss the noise of you sketching in the background. I smiled at the screen. Typing back, you can still hear it if you listen hard enough. He replied a minute later. I am. Every day. Sometimes late at night I still think about that morning, the one that started it all. How something so small could shift an entire world. Back then I thought it was just confusion, a mistake, a moment I'd imagined. Now I know it was the beginning of truth, messy, beautiful, terrifying truth. And maybe that's what love really is. Not a label, not a perfect picture, just two people choosing to stay when it would have been easier to run.